Salvete discipuli, hello 6th grade. This video is for my remote students who are not going to be in class. This week in Latin class, we are going to be learning about Roman numerals and the Latin words for numbers. So just like in English, where we have kind of ways of writing out the numbers in words, and then we have symbols for the numbers, Latin does a similar thing where there's a Latin word for the numbers, and then numbers themselves are represented by Roman numerals, which work a little bit differently from how our numbers work. So we're going to talk about that. So for our Roman numerals, how they work is they are represented by letters. So the ancient Romans would use certain letters to represent certain numbers, and then they would use combinations of those letters to cover all the other numbers. So the ones we're going to be focusing on today, we have the letter I is going to be our Roman numeral for the number 1. The letter V is going to represent our Roman numeral number 5. And the letter X is used to represent the number 10. So these are the three we're going to be focusing on. There are a few others to cover some other numbers that we'll talk about kind of towards the end of this presentation. We are going to be focusing on numbers 1 through 10 for today. So for the Latin words, we're only going to be learning the Latin words for numbers 1 through 10, just to kind of keep things simple. I will talk a little bit about how to use our Roman numerals to get other numbers other than just 1 through 10. But let's get started with our kind of cover 1 through 10 to begin with. Again, we're going to practice saying the Latin words. So unus. Unus is our Latin word for the number 1. And our Roman numeral for 1, as I said in the previous slide, is going to be represented by the letter I. Unus should look familiar. This is very similar to how 1 is done in many languages. Uno in Spanish is going to be 1. Duo. Duo is our Latin word for the number 2. And for the Roman numeral for 2, it's going to be I. So it's like 1 and 1. You kind of have to think about Roman numerals like you're adding the letters together to get the numbers. Tres. Tres is our Latin word for the number 3. This is identical to Spanish. They kept it right the same. And our Roman numeral for 3, following the pattern of 2, is going to be I. So we've got 3 I's for the number 3. Now, 4 is where things get ever so slightly more complicated with Roman numerals. Quatuor. Quatuor is our Latin word for 4. And the Roman numeral for 4 is going to be IV. So if you remember from the first slide, V is representing the number 5. I is representing 1. So how they like to do this with Roman numerals is it's like you think of it like it's 1 before 5. And that's kind of how I remember it. For 4, they think of it as 1 before 5. Quinque. Quinque is our Latin word for 5. And then it's just the Roman numeral is just V, right? V represents 5. 6. Now, 6 is our Latin word for 6, and yes, it does look like our English word, which we use to sometimes replace the word for gender. And this is the only way we're going to be using this word in classes, just to represent the number 6. This is a good example of how sometimes you have words in different languages that might sound or look like words we have in English, but have nothing related in meaning at all. So we're going to be mature about this, and we're only going to use this in class to talk about the number 6. And the Roman numeral for 6, kind of the opposite of how it was for 4, whereas 1 before 5, we're going to have it as 1 after 5. Oops, sorry about that. So 1 after 5 is going to be VI. So think of it as like 5 plus 1 in that way. So it's going to be for 6. Septem. Septem is our Latin word for 7. And this is actually where we get the word September from. In the original calendar, before we have it exactly how it is today, the months January and February weren't added until later, so September was originally the 7th month of the year, and it was named after the Latin word for 7, because very creative. Eventually, January and February were added, and September was no longer the 7th month, but they just kept the name the same. So. The Roman numeral for 7 is like, right, VII, so it's like it's 5 plus 2. Kind of think of it that way. Octo. Octo is our Latin word for 8. This is where we get October from. It used to be the 8th month of the year before January and February were added. And also like octopus or octagon, things like that. And Roman numerals, we have VIII, so it's like 5 plus 3. Novem. Novem is our Latin word for 9. This is where we get November from. And Roman numerals, this one is going to function similarly to how 4 functioned. Remember, 4, they did it as 1 before 5, so it was IV. For 9, it's going to be IX, like it's 1 before 10. So X is our Roman numeral for 10. I is like 1 before 10, so 9. And then decem. Decem is our Latin word for 10. And this is where December comes from. Again, December used to be the 10th month of the year. And then the Roman numeral for 10, as I said, is just X. Now, let's see if we can figure out the Roman numerals for 11. So 11 is going to be, if you think about how we've done like adding things, we have the Roman numeral for 10, and then we're going to add 1. So it's going to be XI. Oh, I forgot I did this one at a time. 12, right? You're going to do it like it's 10 plus 2. So it's going to be XII. 13, it's going to be like it's 10 plus 3. So XIII. 14. Now this is, again, remember 4 works a little bit differently. So we're going to still have X because it's 10 plus 4, right? So it's X, and then we're going to have a Roman numeral for 4, which is IV. And then 15 is just XV. So that's how we're going to kind of work the other Roman numerals, as we just keep adding the letters, adding more letters to get the numbers we need. Now, let's talk about some of the other options. So we have I is 1, V is 5, X is 10. And as I mentioned, there are a few other Roman numerals. So we have L, which is used to represent 50. C is used for 100. D is 500. And then M is 100. So they like their 5s and 10s. So then again, we use kind of combinations of these to mix and match. So if we wanted to say 4, so X, so if we wanted to do 20, it's just XX, it's 2 10s, right? You're adding them together. 30 would be XXX. And then 40 is going to function the same way that 4 did, where 4 was 1 before 5, 40 is 10 before 50. So 40 is going to be written as XL. Same thing for like 90. 90 would be 10 before 100, so it would be XC, and so on and so forth. So you kind of have to use a little bit of like math to work with Roman numerals. So let's just do some math with Roman numerals. So we have IV plus II. So remember what this Roman numeral is, and then what do you think the correct answer would be? III plus V. I plus VIII. X minus III. And V minus I. So see if you can figure out what the Roman numerals would be. Figure out what the math is, what the answer would be, and then what the Roman numeral for that would be. So just kind of a fun, sorry, I'm in my office and the school buzzer's going off. So that's just kind of a fun way of playing with Roman numerals. Now, this is obviously a bit trickier than our math. This is why we don't use Roman numerals today. Roman numerals are not great for math, so they were mostly used for writing like the dates of things. So what year things happen, stuff like that. They didn't have a Roman numeral for 0. They didn't have a number 0. So that if you wanted to say 0, you would have to say there is none of this, something in that way. So they didn't have a number 0, and they didn't really go higher than the thousands as far as numbers go. So kind of limited with math as far as Roman numerals go. So we actually use, I believe, the Arabic numbering system is what we use most of our numerals, where our numerals come from, which works much better for more complex math. But this is kind of fairly simple math that we can still do with our Roman numerals. So that is all for Roman numerals for today. Now, for our assignment for this week, you're going to be combining our Roman numerals with our words for colors that we learned last week. I'm going to have a separate video kind of going over the project. It's a little color by numbers project. So I'll have a separate video kind of talking about what I want you to do for that. And you have until, I think I said next Friday to have this done. So it's going to be kind of a 2-week process. My students who are in class, we're going to be doing most of the work in class together and then just kind of finalizing things at home. So again, there will be a separate video about the project, the Color by Numbers project, so make sure you check that out. And please feel free to email me if you have any questions about our numbers or Roman numerals or anything else that you need support with in Latin. Otherwise, I will see you in the next video and hope you have a lovely week. Vale te discipuli.